Okay, we're now recording the call. Once again, it's Adam Fishman, Executive Director of American Friends of Likud. I want to thank all of you for joining us today on the call with Minister in the Prime Minister's office, Tzachi Hanegbi, who has taken time. He spent a lot of time this afternoon in the Knesset. Many of you probably saw the one opportunity for the opposition to ask questions of the Prime Minister. It's more of a shouting match than anything else, it seems. But I know that he is very busy, and he has taken out a few moments for us this evening here in Jerusalem. I'm going to turn it over now to our board member and President Club member, Sarah Beiser, as our moderator. Any questions that you have during the call, his time is limited, but we will get as many of them as we can in. Please send them directly to me, Adam at aflikud.org. That's ADAM at aflikud.org, and we will do our best to have those questions asked during the call. Once again, last opportunity, or last time I'll say it on this call, please go to our website and continue to support us. We need your support so that we can continue providing these opportunities for dialogue with Israeli leadership, and I'll turn it over now to Sarah. Sarah?
Thank you, Adam, and good afternoon to everyone in Jerusalem and throughout the United States. Minister Tzachi Hanegbi was born in Jerusalem and served as a paratrooper in the IDF. He earned his BA in International Relations and his LLB from Hebrew University. Mr. Tzachi has served the State of Israel in the political sphere for nearly 40 years. Since he was first elected as a Likud MK in 1988, he has served as Minister of Health, Minister of Justice, Minister of the Environment, Minister of Transportation, and Minister of Public Safety. In the Knesset, Tzachi has chaired the prestigious Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee, the Economic Affairs Committee, and the Knesset Arrangement Committee. Tzachi was Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir's bureau chief and was appointed by Prime Minister Ariel Sharon to be a minister in the Prime Minister's office in charge of Israel's intelligence services and the strategic dialogue between Israel and the United States. Most recently, Tzachi was appointed by Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu to be minister in the Prime Minister's office in charge of national security and foreign affairs. And now, Tzachi, I turn the program over to you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Adam. 2 weeks ago, I was appointed again to another ministry, and now I'm the Minister for Regional Cooperation, which is an important ministry that is responsible for the regional cooperation with Jordan and Egypt and other countries, and hopefully many more Arab countries. So I'm happy of this opportunity to speak to the Likud people or whoever is joining us today, and I'll be focused in answering your questions, but just a very short introduction. We were all anxious to the inauguration of the new president. We never really take part in the domestic political arena, and whatever happens in the elections in the United States, we try to stay out of it because we want to keep the bipartisan friendship and the bipartisan support of Israel. But it is not secret that we had a lot of disputes with the Democratic administration, especially with Obama. The last 8 years were problematic in many senses. It was good in other senses, but when it had to do with Iran or with the settlements or with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as a whole, we were frustrated with the policies adopted by the administration, and the fact that a new president came, especially after his announcement before the elections and even after the elections, and the way he perceives things makes us hopeful that things will change and we will be able to enhance our relationship with the United States administration and not go back to the same old bizarre disputes about another balcony in Gilo or another settlement here or there. And yesterday it was really refreshing to hear the White House spokesman, after the announcement of the Prime Minister of 2,500 new units in Judea and Samaria, that he was asked about it, and his answer was balanced and normal and logical. And he said, well, the Prime Minister is going to be meeting with the President very soon, and they will discuss it, and that was it. And this is the normality that we would like to, from now on, to reflect in our intimate friendship. This is where I put period, and I'll be very happy to go forward in answering your questions and elaborating on whatever you'd like me to. So please.
Thank you. I'm going to actually ask you a very easy question for the first question. You were a paratrooper in the IDF. Are soldiers still trained as paratroopers, or are paratroopers used at all in the IDF now? That should be a
Well, paratrooper is some kind of a legacy, some kind of tradition, myth. My son was a paratrooper too, and he fought in Gaza in 2014. But the paratroopers don't really parachute in military activity anymore. It was only used once in 1956 in the Sinai War. It was the first and last time where paratroopers actually parachuted as part of their military operational. But it's some kind of a test, courage test that paratroopers go for, and it gives us a lot of pride that we are the only ones with the red beret and with the red shoes and with the wings on our chest. But it's more a tradition than actual military tactic.
Well, now getting back to the political situation, could you tell us the current status of the Amona situation? What is the latest deadline? And given, from what I understand, that the land to which they were supposed to move is Palestinian land or alleged to be Palestinian land, what are the alternative resolutions to the situation now?
It's hard to tell what will happen because, the facts, I'm not going to go through all the details. I'm sure you're aware of them, supporting the settlements, supporting Amona. The problem was that people who settled Amona and lived there for many, many years had to suffer from the ruling of the Supreme Court, forcing them to leave was supposed to be till December. We asked for, after 2 years of waiting, we asked for another extension. The Supreme Court was patient about it and gave another extension till February 8th, I think. And during this time, we tried to find a solution for the people, and they were supposed to go and settle in very close by hill by Amona, and they agreed. Not with a lot of enthusiasm, but they realized that the confrontation with the army is not something that will give any good, credit to the settlements. We want to be patriots and to make sure that the army people are part of us and we are part of them, and there's no real violent conflict with the kids. So, as you said, now it seems that there are legal problems with the specific lots that were supposed to be the alternative place for the families that are living, around 40 families. And I know that the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Justice, both Minister Shaked and Minister Lieberman and their legal advisors, are doing their utmost effort to find the right solution as soon as possible and to prevent confrontation and also to make sure that the settlements is alive and kicking and existing and flourishing.
Daniel Tauber from New York asked whether you could elaborate on the status of moving the embassy to Jerusalem and whether the U.S. administration is providing opportunity for negotiations in that regard.
Well, there's no negotiation with Israel because it's a domestic American issue, and there is American legislation initiated by the Congress back, I think, in 1995, declaring and binding the State Department to move the embassy to Jerusalem. But since there are executive powers to the president, he has the right to waiver this legislation. So the actual decision was never implemented since 95. Now, every American president, unfortunately, Republican, Democrat, that committed himself to doing so after the elections backed off. So now we hear Trump, and we believe that in this case it's going to be different. But I personally have no idea whether it will be implemented. I heard the ambassador designated, Mr. Friedman, he gave an interview after the elections, and he said that he's anxious to go and work from the embassy in Jerusalem. So there was a good sign. Again, we try to stay out of the debate about it because it's really something that up to the American Congress and to the White House. And of course, for us, it's unacceptable that such an intimate ally of Israel does not recognize Israel's capital city as such, Jerusalem. And it's not, as we all know, it's not a matter of what happened after 67 or 48 or 73, that most embassies left after those two wars, but United States in 1948 did not recognize Jerusalem as the capital city of Israel and located its embassy in 1948 in Tel Aviv. And it's outrageous that 70 years later it's still the same. So we hope that things will change, but we make sure that we keep it to America to make the decisions.
And Tzachi, Jacob Navone asks what your view is about the impact on negotiations with the Palestinians, despite their histrionics and their screaming right now about violence if the embassy is moved. Do you think it will make the situation?
It's absurd. They have no, I think, capabilities to threat anything. And I remember the days where I was the Minister of Public Security, as you mentioned before. It was in 2003. And the Mount Temple, Har HaBayit, was closed for Jews and Christians since 2000 on the direct instruction and demand of Arafat. And Barak was the prime minister and accepted it. And then Sharon's government was there, and I was the Minister of Public Security, responsible for the police. And I told the police, what's the big deal? Why can't we just open it? And the police was hesitant, and so did the Shabak, the General Security Service. And I saw that I need the backing of the Prime Minister of Sharon. And I told him, this is my intention. I'm going to physically open the mountain for Jews, like it was since 1967. Not only Jews, tourists, Christians, Buddhists, whoever, not only Muslims. And Sharon was very strong about it, said, just do it. And in August 2003, this is what I instructed the police to do, and since then it's open, 13 years already. Thousands of Jews go there every month on a daily basis, and I remember the threats. They're going to flood us with millions of Muslims coming from all over the Muslim world to revenge, and rivers of blood will flow, and all those empty talk. And when they see that we are strong, that we are courageous, that we know what we need, that we know what we want, and we are tough, then they don't dare to provoke us. So this is the case going to be, I think, when they see America making a decision, they will yell, they will cry out, they will, do all whatever they do when there are new settlements or but it's going to be empty talk, and we have no need, or the United States in this case, do not have to fear any real problem.
Turning to Iran, Susan Cohn asks what you see or your view of the relationship between Iran and Russia, and what do you believe would be the best path forward vis-a-vis Iran?
Iran made a lot of connection with Russia in the last 15 years because they had to choose after the United States became more hostile to them during the Bush administration and later on even Obama for a long time. 6 out of his 8 years he was leading the coalition that made the sanction regime valid against them. So they didn't have any other superpower. China was always in their usual capacity as neutral to everything and only keeps their own economical growth and stability. So they tried to go aboard on the Russian platform, which the Russians were happy to. The Russians gave them a lot of weapon and even built, as you remember, the Bushehr nuclear reactor. That is a civil one, but it was against all the resolutions of the United Nations and the sanction regime. And now the cooperation is much more intensive because of the war in Syria, where they have common interest to keep Assad alive. So we see a stronger alliance there. We also have a lot of things in common with the Russians, and there's a friendship between Vladimir Putin and Netanyahu in many aspects. So the Russians are playing their cards wherever it's comfortable for them. But in the Syria context, it might be problematic because the Iranians are trying to get more and more leverage in Syria and more presence in Syria, and it might be problematic to us in the future.
I'd like to turn to housing construction, not by Israeli Jews, but by Bedouins and Druze. How much of the illegal Bedouin housing construction is funded by EU NGOs? And what impact is that having?
I don't have the exact detail about it. I know that they are involved. We are going very elegantly with the Bedouins because you have to remember, Bedouins, many of them serve in the Israeli army, and many of them are loyal. So it's not like the Muslim radicalism. Unfortunately, it's not like the Druze loyalty, but it's somewhere in between. So we try to make sure that even though we are very strong about enforcing the law and the regulations in the Negev, we try to build some kind of alternative. So they will not resent the state of Israel and will keep being a minority that we can count on. So altogether, what we see is a delicate situation. Sometimes there is escalation, like in the last week. Sometimes it gets done in a discreet way.
Now, with regard to the Druze, I understand that some of the homes that are to be destroyed belong to Druze families, and in some of those families, children were in the IDF, and some of those kids in the IDF were killed in wars. Is there anything that's contemplated to be done, particularly with regard to those Druze families who have lost children fighting in the IDF?
Yes, exactly. You touched on a very sensitive issue. The Druze going to the army in higher rates than the Jews. That's a fact because 20% of the Jewish population are ultra-Orthodox. They don't go to the army. And there are also some secular segments that are, evading their need to go to the army or mandatory draft and find ways to escape, and we don't impose it upon them because they're not going to be of any use to the army. But the Druze still can take every family. Every family has people in the army, kids in the army. The 95% of the people go to the army. So it is problematic to exempt them from committing themselves to the laws, because you also go and rule and destroy houses of Jews that have been to the army, or the kids are now in the army, and you want to impose the rule of law on them. You don't exempt them because they go to the army. But it has to be dealt with a lot of sensitivity, because they do feel discriminated anyway. And to begin with, they feel that they serve the Jewish society, they spill their blood for the Jewish state, and they want to be treated in a more sensitive way.
So turning to defense, what could you tell us about the status of the Arrow missile defense system, and what could you tell us about the latest in anti-tunnel technology, either being used in Gaza or perhaps even in the north?
With the Iron Dome, as you know, the results of the last military encounter in Gaza vis-a-vis the Iron Dome achievements, very impressive, 93-94% success, amazing results that the American people who were financing most of the project but were not part of the thinking or the genius bringing about of the brain issues were amazed from the results, and they couldn't believe what they saw. They are part of the new project, as you know, David Sling, and David Sling was never really tested in real life, and hopefully it will not. We don't need another round of confrontation with either Hamas or Hezbollah, but once it will be challenged, we believe that it will have the same success. And of course, there is the Arrow, and the Arrow 3 was just given to the Israeli Defense Forces after years of production and planning. So this is a framework of success. We don't have, unfortunately, the same system in regards to the tunnels. And so far, no country in the world was able to invent something that can track down a tunnel 30, 40 meters down in the ground. And it's very problematic because of many aspects, but we believe that we are leading in the world's technology in this area, getting more and more satisfaction from the tests we do. And we are not going to give up till we will have the ultimate solution, the underground Iron Dome. We have the Congress support, and the last MOU that was signed several months ago, it was part of the $38 billion that were given to the Israeli army in the next decade. And eventually we'll find the way to protect ourselves. But it's not yet operational. And there are tunnels all the time. We know from our intelligence how essential and crucial this effort is for the Hamas, after the fact that they saw how ineffective the rockets are. It's not totally ineffective, because even though they don't kill people, it paralyzes the country and can paralyze the economy, and it can have ramifications over the aerial movements, and we see that it's not something that is irrelevant at all, but it doesn't kill people, and they know our sensitivity to human lives, and they know that this is not something that will break us. So they look for alternative, and the alternative that they found is the tunnels. And I can tell you that there's not a day that they don't work, and I'm talking about hundreds of people working every day to enhance the tunnel effort. And we're doing whatever we can, and we can do much to find the solution. It's not a phenomenon in the north yet, because Hezbollah, as we know, is focused on what's happening in the Syrian arena. But we have intelligence that it might be their strategy whenever they are released from their effort in Syria.
Tzachi, we have one last question for you, and that comes from Robert Kravitz. And he'd like you to comment on, in your role as Minister of Regional Cooperation, could you comment on the state of the relationship, our relationship with Egypt, with Jordan, with Lebanon, and Saudi Arabia in the context of the new Trump administration and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
Well, first of all, this, without any connection to both the Trump administration or the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the relationship with the Arab world as a whole, and I'm talking about the pragmatic Sunni countries, not, of course, the Shiites or the crazy ones, but the Sunni countries understand more than ever before that their enemy is not Israel anymore, but on the contrary, that Israel is an asset in their the challenges that they face against real enemies like Iran and ISIS. So the connection that we have now with Jordan and Egypt is unprecedented. I'm not elaborating on it. You understand why, but it's you can understand that whatever happens in the Sinai is important for both countries. And with the Jordanian context, the need to keep Jordan strong and able to take their destiny in their hands and not fall to the hands of Daesh, of ISIS, is another mutual interest of both Israel and Jordan. So this is the reason for the unprecedented cooperation. With other countries, the Gulf states, it's the same interest, but we don't have peace with them, so it's difficult, more difficult for them to have a real public cooperation. But the things that I can relate to are the public aspect of it. You see that the media in Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states have columns of writers, famous writers in those countries, analyzing exactly what I just said and defining the enemy as enemies that Israel can help them fight with. We have now a more formal cooperation in Abu Dhabi. We have a firm, an Israeli energy organ that is publicly stationed there, and hopefully it will develop to a better organ to enhance the relationship in the Gulf states. There are many things that I'm not talking about, but everybody understands, and especially the Trump administration understands and will understand very soon, that it is the time to lead the change in the new Middle East. And the new Middle East means that the Sunni world, with the United States leadership and with Israel's involvement, will focus on defending itself from the radical forces of the fanatic Islam, and I hope that's the road we're taking.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. Go ahead. You want to close up?
No, thank you, Adam, and thank you, Tzachi.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you all very much for joining us. And we, like I said before, we hope that you will all take the opportunity to go to our website and continue to support American Friends of Likud so we can continue to provide these special opportunities to directly interact with the leadership of Israel. Thank you, Minister Tzachi Hanegbi, and thank you very much, Sarah Beiser, as always, for doing a wonderful job as our moderator. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.